The first thing Karen did wasn't find my grill. She walked over, lifted the lid without asking, looked inside and said, "Well, at least it's clean." Then she fined me anyway. My name is Nolan Brooks, and until last summer my backyard grill had one job: cook food. That's it. It wasn't loud, it wasn't rusty, it wasn't smoking 24 hours a day, it wasn't visible from the street. It sat on my backyard patio, exactly where it had been for 6 years, tucked beside a small pergola with a couple of chairs, and a table where my 12-year-old son Mason and I spent nearly every Friday night making burgers that were usually overcooked because we spent more time arguing about baseball than watching the meat. Those Friday cookouts had started after my wife passed away. At first, neither of us knew what to say to each other, so we grilled. Some nights we talked. Some nights we didn't. The sound of burgers sizzling filled in the silence better than words ever could. Eventually, it became our tradition. Every Friday, no matter what. Then Beverly Dawson decided charcoal was an architectural problem. Beverly was the HOA president of Maple Ridge Estates. She dressed like every day was an awards ceremony for people who enjoyed telling others what they couldn't do. Perfect pearl necklace, white linen jacket, designer sunglasses that probably cost more than my grill. She drove a spotless silver SUV instead of a golf cart because, according to neighborhood rumor, she believed golf carts looked too recreational. She also believed fences were apparently transparent. One Saturday afternoon, I was seasoning steaks while Mason cleaned the patio table. The grill lid was open. The charcoal wasn't even lit yet. Suddenly, I heard Beverly's voice from behind the fence. "Mr. Brooks." I looked around. Beverly? She was standing on a small landscaping berm behind my property, just tall enough to see over the fence line. I blinked. "Were you looking into my backyard?" "I was conducting a routine exterior observation." Mason whispered, "That's creepy." I couldn't disagree. Beverly held up a clipboard. "I've received multiple concerns regarding your outdoor cooking equipment." I looked around my backyard. "My grill?" "Yes. It hasn't even been turned on. It remains visible from neighboring properties." I laughed. "Beverly." "You're standing on a hill." She ignored that completely. Section 9, Paragraph G of the Maple Ridge Exterior. Enjoyment standards prohibits permanent outdoor cooking stations, oversized grills, visible food preparation equipment, and recreational cooking installations that negatively impact neighborhood aesthetics. I stared at her. My backyard grill negatively impacts aesthetics? It creates the appearance of excessive outdoor entertaining. Mason frowned. People aren't allowed to have burgers? Beverly smiled politely. People are encouraged to entertain tastefully. I rested one hand on the grill lid. This grill has been here for 6 years. Policies evolve. So now cooking is ugly? No, she smiled. The presentation is. She handed me the violation notice over the fence. $250. Remove the grill from visible areas within 72 hours. Additional fines would follow each week until the violation was corrected. I looked down at the paper, then back at my grill. It wasn't fancy. Just a black kettle-style charcoal grill with a few scratches from years of weekend cookouts. The handle had been replaced twice. The wheels squeaked. Mason had painted a tiny flame on one side when he was 8 because he thought it made the burgers taste better. It was the last Father's Day gift my wife had helped him buy before she got sick. Beverly looked at her watch. I trust this won't become difficult. I folded the notice slowly. So the problem isn't the grill. It is the way it looks. The problem, Beverly corrected, is that it lacks refinement. There it was, refinement. I looked at the old grill, then at Mason, then back at Beverly. A slow smile spread across my face. She mistook it for surrender. It wasn't. If you're watching Sovereign Verdict, subscribe now, because Beverly Dawson had just made one very expensive mistake. She called my backyard grill unrefined. She wanted me to hide it. Instead, I was about to give it the fanciest restaurant patio this neighborhood had ever seen. That night, after Mason went upstairs, I stayed on the patio with the grill. The steaks were long gone. The charcoal had burned itself into gray ash. The only sound left was the quiet crackling from the last glowing embers, while I reread Beverly's violation notice for what had to be the 10th time. She hadn't fined smoke. She hadn't fined noise. She hadn't even fined the smell of charcoal. She fined presentation. I carried the notice inside, opened the Maple Ridge HOA handbook, and started reading. 334 pages. Apparently, maintaining neighborhood harmony required more paperwork than launching a satellite. I worked through landscaping rules, patio regulations, decorative standards, and outdoor entertainment policies until nearly midnight. Beverly had quoted the grill restriction correctly. Visible cooking equipment, oversized grills, and permanent outdoor food preparation stations could be restricted if they negatively affected neighborhood appearance. Fine. The grill couldn't look like a backyard grill anymore. So I kept reading. About 20 pages later, hidden inside the Community Lifestyle Enhancement section, I found something that made me laugh out loud. Section 15, Paragraph B. Decorative courtyard features, hospitality-themed landscape installations, outdoor dining displays, seasonal entertaining patios, and architecturally integrated gathering spaces may be maintained when properly landscaped, kept well-maintained, and non-commercial in nature. I read it twice. Then a third time. Hospitality-themed landscape installations, outdoor dining displays, architecturally integrated gathering spaces. I slowly looked through the kitchen window toward the patio. The grill wasn't going anywhere. It was getting promoted. The next morning, Mason wandered into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. "You've got the revenge face." "I have a revenge face now?" "You had it when you built Grandpa's fishing dock. You had it when you fixed Mrs. Ramirez's mailbox. You definitely have it now." And I slid the HOA rule book toward him. "What does that paragraph make you think of?" He read it carefully. "Restaurant." I smiled. "What kind?" His eyes suddenly grew wide. "A fancy one?" "Very. The kind where they bring tiny food on giant plates." "Exactly." He started laughing before I even finished my coffee. "Dad, are we making the grill look like a restaurant?" "No. We're making the patio look like a Michelin-Star restaurant." By lunchtime, I'd called my oldest friend, Leo. Leo owned a restaurant supply company and had furnished everything from neighborhood cafes to luxury hotels. More importantly, he believed every ridiculous idea deserved professional execution. When I explained Beverly's violation, he became strangely quiet. Then he asked one question. "French or Italian?" I wasn't planning a cuisine. You have to commit to the atmosphere. 2 hours later, his truck backed into my driveway, loaded with potted olive trees, black planter boxes, decorative lanterns, velvet rope stanchions, elegant cafe tables, oversized menu boards, faux reservation signs, and enough outdoor decor to convince anyone they'd accidentally wandered into an expensive restaurant courtyard. "This," Leo announced proudly, "is how pettiness earns 5 stars." We didn't touch the grill itself. That mattered. Instead, we transformed everything around it. The patio received stone-colored outdoor rugs, polished planter boxes overflowing with herbs, elegant cafe chairs, soft string lights stretched beneath the pergola, and a decorative hostess stand near the gate. The old grill became the centerpiece of an impossibly classy outdoor chef's station. Then Leo unveiled the finishing touch. A beautifully carved wooden sign. Le Jardin de Bruxesit, 2026 Michelin-Stars, pending their good decision. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped it. Mason insisted we add one more sign beneath it. Reservations full until the HOA calms down. Leo wiped tears from his eyes. I taught culinary school for 12 years. I've never been more proud. By Sunday afternoon, the backyard looked unbelievable. Not like someone's patio, like the outdoor dining terrace of a luxury countryside restaurant. Everything matched. Everything looked intentional. Everything looked expensive. The old charcoal grill, with Mason's little painted flame still visible on the side, suddenly looked like the centerpiece of an award-winning chef's outdoor kitchen. Mrs. Ramirez peeked over the fence. Nolan. Did a restaurant open back here? Soft opening. She laughed. I'll need a reservation. At exactly 8:11 Monday morning, Beverly arrived. She climbed onto the same landscaping berm she'd used before. Confident, smug, clipboard ready. Then she looked over the fence. She didn't speak. She simply stared. The black grill sat proudly beneath elegant lanterns. Tables were dressed with folded linen napkins. Herb planters framed the cooking area. Velvet ropes surrounded the entrance. The carved restaurant sign stood beside the gate like it had always belonged there. Finally, Beverly removed her sunglasses. Mr. Brooks. Good morning. What? She pointed toward the patio. Is all of this? I smiled. An architecturally integrated hospitality-themed outdoor dining installation. Her eye twitched. It looks like a restaurant. Decorative atmosphere. It has a hostess stand. Guest organization. It has reservation signs. Crowd management. It has velvet ropes. I nodded. Fine dining requires standards. Beverly stared silently for several long seconds. Then she slowly reached into her briefcase. I'll see you tonight. I smiled. I'll save you the best table. By 7 o'clock that evening, the Maple Ridge Clubhouse looked like someone had announced free concert tickets instead of an emergency HOA hearing. Every chair was occupied. Neighbors stood along the walls, filled the hallway, and even gathered outside the windows trying to peek into the meeting room. By now, everyone had seen photos of my Michelin-Star restaurant patio, and the neighborhood rumor mill had upgraded it from fancy barbecue area to secret celebrity restaurant. Leo leaned toward me and whispered, If anybody asks for reservations, I'm charging them. Mason grinned. I already made a waiting list. I wasn't even surprised. Beverly Dawson sat at the center of the board table wearing a navy blazer and enough determination to power a small city. Beside her sat 3 board members. Elaine chaired the landscaping committee and genuinely appreciated good design. Trevor handled finances and usually looked terrified whenever meetings became emotional. And Richard, a retired hotel manager, was already studying the photographs of my patio with unmistakable professional curiosity. Beverly struck the gavel. This emergency architectural hearing concerns Lot 18, where homeowner Nolan Brooks has responded to a grill violation by constructing. She paused and looked at the photograph again. An imitation luxury restaurant. I stood calmly. Not imitation. She sighed. Mr. Brooks, do you deny creating this installation? No. Excellent. She pressed a button, and a large photo appeared on the projector. My patio looked incredible. Elegant lanterns glowed beneath the pergola. Olive trees framed the dining area. Linen-covered cafe tables surrounded the grill. Velvet ropes guided visitors toward the decorative hostess stand. Even the herb planters made the entire backyard look like it belonged in a travel magazine. Beverly pointed dramatically. That is still a grill. I opened my binder. The grill remains. The violation does not. I handed copies of the highlighted HOA paragraph to each board member. Section 15. Paragraph B permits decorative courtyard features, hospitality-themed landscape installations, outdoor dining displays, seasonal entertaining patios, and architecturally integrated gathering spaces. Richard adjusted his glasses. It certainly says hospitality-themed. Elaine continued reading. And outdoor dining displays. Trevor looked back and forth between the rule and the photographs. It does appear integrated. Beverly leaned forward. The intent of that paragraph was tasteful patios. I nodded. Thank you. I wasn't complimenting you. I know. Richard looked thoughtfully at the photographs again. I've managed luxury hotels. Everyone turned toward him. The layout is surprisingly authentic. Leo whispered under his breath. That's the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me. Beverly rubbed her forehead. It has velvet ropes. Decorative guest flow. It has a hostess stand. Hospitality theme. It has reservation signage. Atmosphere. It has printed menus. Educational. Beverly blinked. Educational? I smiled. They explained different barbecue techniques. Mason quietly slid one menu toward the board. The front read, Le Jardin de Brooks, Chef's Tasting Experience. Inside were descriptions of charcoal grilling, smoking temperatures, steak preparation, wood selection, and proper resting times for meat. At the bottom, in small letters, Mason had written, Michelin inspectors welcome. HOA inspectors by reservation only. Richard laughed before he could stop himself. Even Trevor smiled. Beverly looked personally offended by happiness. This is retaliatory. Absolutely. The room became quiet. I nodded once. It is retaliatory compliance. You fined my family grill because it wasn't refined enough. So I refined the entire patio. Elaine looked around the room. Nolan. Is this where you and Mason cook every Friday? Every single Friday. I glanced toward my son. After my wife passed away, we didn't really know how to talk. So we grilled. Some nights we talked. Some nights we just cooked. But we never missed a Friday. Mason looked down at the table. It still feels like Mom's with us. The room fell completely silent. Even Beverly didn't interrupt. Elaine quietly folded her hands. I didn't know that. I don't usually tell people. Richard studied one of the patio photographs. You know, restaurants aren't really about food. Everyone looked at him. They're about people gathering together. before Beverly could regain control of the meeting. The clubhouse doors opened. Leo smiled immediately. Perfect. Walking inside was Chef Antonio Ricci, owner of the city's highest-rated Italian restaurant, wearing his white chef's jacket, followed by the director of the annual Maple Ridge Community Food Festival. Beverly slowly turned toward me. "Nolan," I smiled. "Funny thing about Michelin-Star restaurants. I figured we should ask someone who actually owns one." Chef Antonio Ricci didn't look like someone who spent much time worrying about HOA bylaws. He walked into the clubhouse wearing a crisp white chef's jacket, embroidered with the name of his restaurant, followed by Melissa Carter, director of the Maple Ridge Community Food Festival. Both carried folders, and both looked slightly confused about why a neighborhood board meeting was discussing restaurant patios. Beverly stood up so quickly, her chair scraped across the floor. "Mr. Ricci, this is an HOA architectural hearing." Antonio smiled politely. "So, Mr. Brooks explained. He also told me someone objected because his barbecue area looked too much like a restaurant." He looked genuinely puzzled. "I've heard many complaints in my career. That is certainly a new one." A ripple of laughter moved through the room. Melissa stepped forward. "I visited the Brooks property this afternoon." She laid several photographs on the table. "They're beautiful." Beverly folded her arms. "They're misleading." "No," Melissa replied calmly. "They're creative." She pointed toward one of the photographs. "The landscaping is cohesive. The dining area is professionally arranged. The herb planters are integrated into the design. The decorative lighting is tasteful. The entire patio encourages outdoor gathering." She smiled. "That's exactly what our annual community food festival promotes." Richard nodded slowly. "I noticed the same thing." Antonio opened his folder. "I also noticed something else." He held up one of Mason's menus. I expected a joke. What I found instead was an educational menu explaining charcoal cooking, meat preparation, temperature control, and outdoor hospitality. He looked toward Mason. "You wrote this?" Mason nodded nervously. "I helped Dad." Antonio smiled warmly. "You understand something many restaurants forget." Everyone looked at him. "People don't remember the perfect steak. They remember who they shared it with." The room grew quiet. I looked at Mason. He looked back at me. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then I quietly said, "Friday night saved us." After my wife died, there were weeks when the house felt impossibly quiet. Sitting around that grill became the one place where conversation happened naturally. Sometimes we'd laugh. Sometimes we'd remember her. Sometimes we'd just cook dinner together. It wasn't really about hamburgers. It never had been. Beverly cleared her throat. "No one is questioning your family traditions." I looked at her. "Actually, that's exactly what this fine did. You didn't cite smoke. You didn't cite safety. You didn't cite noise. You called my grill unrefined. And the place where my son and I rebuilt our lives became an eyesore." The silence that followed felt different, not awkward, thoughtful. Elaine slowly closed her copy of the rule book. "I think we've been looking at this backwards." Richard nodded. "The grill was never the centerpiece." "The gathering space was." Melissa smiled. "Exactly. Our community food festival exists because meals bring neighbors together." She reached into her folder and removed another document. "We've been looking for one home each year to feature during the festival's neighborhood hospitality tour." Beverly blinked. "The what?" Melissa handed the brochure to the board. "The Brooks patio was unanimously recommended by our committee this afternoon." Richard looked impressed. Featured? As an example of creative backyard hospitality. Antonio laughed softly. I can't give Michelin stars. But I can tell you this, if someone invited me to dinner on that patio, I'd happily accept. Leo leaned over and whispered, That's better than a Michelin star. Even Trevor chuckled. Elaine looked around the board table. I move to dismiss the violation against Lot 18 and approve the Brooks Hospitality Patio as an architecturally integrated outdoor dining installation under Section 15, Paragraph B. Richard immediately raised his hand. I second. Trevor looked at Beverly for a long moment before quietly raising his own hand. 3 votes. Beverly's hand remained on the table. The motion passes, Elaine announced. The fine is dismissed. The patio is officially approved. The clubhouse erupted into applause. Mason hugged me so hard I nearly dropped my binder. Leo shook Antonio's hand like he'd just won the lottery. Mrs. Ramirez stood in the back and shouted, When's opening night? Even Beverly couldn't stop the laughter this time. She slowly gathered her papers, closed her folder, and looked directly at me. I suppose the patio is refined, I smiled. It always was. You just couldn't see past the grill. A month later, our patio became part of the Maple Ridge Community Food Festival. Neighbors wandered through the backyard tasting barbecue, fresh lemonade, and desserts donated by families from around the block. Antonio stopped by for nearly an hour, giving Mason grilling tips and signing the little menu he'd written. Melissa presented us with a plaque recognizing the patio for promoting neighborhood hospitality, and Leo insisted it needed to hang right beside the pergola. The old charcoal grill never changed. It still had the tiny flame Mason painted years ago. It still squeaked when I rolled it across the patio. And every Friday evening, just before sunset, Mason and I still fired it up together. Only now, the neighbors waved over the fence instead of complaining about it. As for Beverly, she never mentioned my grill again. But every time she drove past during one of our Friday cookouts, she slowed down just enough to glance through the gate at the little restaurant patio she accidentally inspired. So remember this from Sovereign Verdict. Subscribe for more stories, read every HOA rule twice, and never let an HOA Karen call your backyard grill unrefined, because she might end up creating the most talked about Michelin-Star restaurant patio in the entire neighborhood.